Welcome to the November 2025 portfolio update video where I'll take a deeper look into the accounts and the positions and the holdings to just go over where things are at, where my head's at, any comments on specific companies or markets or things that I'm looking for or whatnot. Now, I will say overall, I'm pretty happy with what I have, and I might not have specific call outs for companies, but I'll try to cover each one as best I can. This is my first update video, so bear with me. I'll try to figure out ways to make this more concise and make sure the information that's contained within the spreadsheet as I go through it is sufficient for anyone that might be getting value from these videos. So starting off, I just want to say I don't have any savings month to month right now. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I'll maybe talk about that in sometime in the future. So no cash was added to any of the accounts this month. So with that, let's jump in. So the short-term trading account. So I mentioned before I've had some loans that I've taken out for investing purposes, and you'll see on the short-term trading and long-term trading accounts a lot of cash withdrawals, a lot more on the long-term trading account. I don't want to bother with trying to make the adjustments to the percentage gain loss. So I'm just going to keep all the performance stuff money weighted, even if I withdraw cash or add cash, just to keep it simple. If you added the 14K back, the account's doing pretty well this year. And a lot of that is because of intermediate swings on the precious metals and precious metal stocks. So I've been doing a lot of options trades this year. And for full transparency, I do follow a paid service that gives signals for intermediate cycles on the precious metals and precious metal stocks. I don't follow what they're the signals exactly. I take what they're saying and then I make my own decisions with what I'm doing, the strike month and the position sizing and things like that, and even when I'm selling. Right now, you can see that I have a pretty big chunk of the account, about 30% open on a silver option long, and I just picked that up earlier in November. And if we take a look at the silver chart, so I'm recording this on Monday morning, December 1st. The data that I have is in the spreadsheet is actually of Thursday or Wednesday. There's actually a lot more gains on the position. I didn't want to bother updating it for Friday because I already kind of entered all the data in here. I'll have to figure out if there's maybe a better way I can use like an add-on or something to have the positions update in more real time. But anyway, I really like playing that intermediate swing. And then I have positions in soybeans and sugar right now. I like those markets and their positioning for kind of that broader commodity, a broader commodity bull market. And I liked where those markets were at to take a stab at an intermediate swing. Just a comment on the silver option trade. So I did pick that up on November 11 and 12. So it was when silver was a bit higher during this correction that it's had since mid-October. I was aware that silver could have made a C wave down. Usually you have your ABC correction. So I left cash in case that did happen so I could add to the trade. I was willing to bet a pretty big chunk of this account on these intermediate swings. One, because I have a lot of gains this year already that I'm willing to bet with. And then also just having a lot of conviction with it, especially when you have a good amount of time horizon. That's why the options that I have are June of 26. And if I had to, silver kind of went into a longer consolidation and correction, then the strategy would have been I just would have rolled those out to a later month. Maybe sometime in February, March, April, I would have rolled them to January 2027 instead. So they would have depreciated, but eventually if you roll them out, you'll eventually catch that upswing. And luckily, it happens sooner than later. So pretty happy with what's going on right now there. So looking at my long-term trading account, this account is where a lot of the gains this year have happened. You can see I've withdrawn a ton of cash. A lot of it was to pay off loan. A lot of it was for like personal things that were going on, and some of it is like I think I might have moved some money between accounts too. I don't remember everything, all the reasons why. Yeah, I did withdraw a lot this month. So I think the withdrawals are close to 90K. So if you add that to November's total, then roughly this portfolio is up like 100% about this year, which makes sense because I have a ton of precious metals exposure today, and I had even more earlier this year, and they've just performed really well. I mean, you can see there's some positions that are up over 100%, and a lot of the stocks that I sold were up multiple hundreds of percent. So just to show, I was in Ghislaine Gold, which went from 30 cents to $2.30. I sold it at between like 150 and 180. So on this pump right here is when I sold it. I was also in Abra Silver. I probably should have kept some of these stocks. It's always easy to say it in hindsight. I was because of all the learnings that I've had in the past, I was trying to be prudent and take profits on positions that had big gains, and a lot of these stocks that I'm sharing were up hundreds of percent. And so I was just like, at what point am I going to be happy with it? Part of me wishes I kept it. And in fact, this is actually a good learning to share, even though it's the middle of the video. Something that I remember thinking about when I was, looking for this upswing in the precious metals sector is that it's not smart to try and pick winners or to try and be even with individual companies to try to time tops or whatever. I think it's actually best to not touch anything until you want to sell everything, because you just never know which stocks are going to go up 10, 20, 30 times and which might only go up 100%. And even if you have stocks that are huge winners, they can become even bigger winners. I guess this was like a tier one better decision where instead of kind of selling everything when the run up happened, trimmed about a third of everything. But I sold the entire positions of some stocks. If I think a tier two, a better decision would have been sell the same amount of every stock but keep holding them. But I think the tier three, like the best decision, and what I would probably do in a future bull market is just hold everything. And if I'm gonna trim everything evenly. Like if I want to sell 10% of my positions or get 10% cash, sell 10% of every position. Don't pick and choose which ones to sell. I think that would have been the best decision. So that's another learning lesson. It's tough when you see a stock up hundreds of percent. It's enticing, especially because of my history and experience. It's enticing to take profit. So I did succumb to that and take profit on a number of positions. But I still have a lot of exposure that I'm happy with. So to go through some of the stocks in here, Metalla, definitely want to hold that really long term. So I'm going to keep that there. K92, that company, their margins are so big. Gold mining company, they're just printing cash. I love holding that one. SBSW, I'll keep holding that. Love that stock. Rio 2, this one's been one of the biggest percentage winners I've ever had in my career. But just to be to level set and give some context, I owned Rio 2 back in 2022 before it fell off a cliff here. And the reason it fell off a cliff is because they had their environmental permit declined by the government or rejected. So they had to appeal it, and it took some time. But eventually they did get it appealed, and it is a fantastic project. So you can see it's being very valued by the market. So I'm going to keep holding on to that one. I have trimmed it, so I'll continue kind of trimming it as time goes on. But I do think there's still upside. Go Golds, that's a really good silver company, gold and silver company. I think they're mostly silver. I have a few Chinese stocks. One of them's Alibaba. If I just show you a stock like Alibaba, which is representative of what a lot of the Chinese market has done. They had the huge sell off from 2020, a big bear market, and so it kind of just made sense that eventually these companies getting a lot cheaper, China would move back into a bull market, and that's what I was betting on. So I had picked up some Chinese stocks in 2022 to 2024. Cisco Metals. I've traded this a few times. Guys that runs the company, his name's Robert Wares. I think he's a geologist, and I think he might be the chairman of the board, or he's very involved with this project and also Brunswick exploration. And he just has massive positions on both of those stocks. Cisco Metals is a copper stock. I like holding it. I want to see where it goes in the long term, even if I just do a kind of a shorter term trade here. If it had like a big surge in the next year or two or 6 months. Impala Platinum, I like holding that. That one's performed pretty well in the platinum stocks that I have. Just to say, I've trimmed a lot of these stocks that are winners. I have trimmed a lot of these, but as of now, I'm comfortable holding what I have for more upside. Stillwater Critical Minerals, I like holding that. That's an explorer with a land package right next to Sibanye Stillwater. Silver Tiger Metals, I like holding that. That's a silver explorer. MJ, this is probably the worst investment I've had in the last few years. I frankly was just I didn't do the research. I didn't take the time to look at it. This was when I was a little bit more naive for sure. Didn't utilize the lessons learned. The marijuana stocks had such a big decline from the peak during that frothiness in like 2015 to 2021. And so as it was having the bear market, I figured, all right, principle of the cure for low prices is low prices, as Rick Rule would say. Obviously, you still have to have a value and profitable operations. And I just didn't take a close enough look at the marijuana stocks and profitability. And they're just, they're hemorrhaging cash. Like they're not. So I kind of looked at marijuana similar to alcohol, where it's widely used. I think the market will continue to grow over time. And I think people will use cannabis more than alcohol as the markets, going forward as the markets grow. That's just my opinion. So I thought it would be a good long-term investment. And I definitely dollar cost average down way too much. I put too much money into it. It's been one of the worst investments I've ever done for sure. Yeah, pretty disappointed with that one, but it is what it is. I'm not going to buy any more, but I will keep holding it because I think eventually they'll turn around. The sector will consolidate, demand will continue to grow, and I think those companies will eventually figure it out. So I'm okay leaving it there for now, but I don't know what I'll do with it. I could end up selling it at any point. I'm not sure. BlackRock Silver, good silver explorer. Liberty Gold. This one has been a bit of a dud. It has a great project. I thought it would have performed better with the surge in gold prices, but I still like the opportunity with it, so I'm going to keep holding it. First Majestic, that's a big silver stock. Occidental Petroleum. I picked this up because I saw Warren picked it up. I am trying to look forward with the oil market. I think eventually it's going to move into a bull market. There's a lot of cyclicality with the moves in precious metal sector, and then it has been in a bear move here for the last few years. So even if it doesn't bottom soon, even if it chops around or goes lower, I want to start positioning in oil stocks. I think it's a good time to start looking at them. I don't really see many people talking about the oil sector. Classic contrarian, the more people don't talk about something or they hate something, that's when I want to go look at it, because from a cycle perspective, eventually that's when things turn around and you start moving the other direction. So I want to start positioning in the oil stocks. Anglo Platinum, still not in profit on this one, but still want to keep holding it for the precious metals bull market. Nutrien, I picked up a couple potash stocks recently. I liked the way that their charts look, and again, just looking at the broader commodities bull market, I think they're going to continue to outperform and have relative strength. So I picked up Nutrien and Intrepid potash. So I'm going to keep holding these, and I'm totally good adding to these, or even picking up some other potash stocks if we had further weakness. Monarm Gold is a good gold and silver explorer. Smart Sand, this is another oil and gas play. I think they're mostly involved in the natural gas industry. This is one of those stocks that kind of has, I don't want to say boom and bust, but it's very volatile where it'll have big upswings and then kind of drift back down and then have an upswing and drift back down. So I like it for a trade. I've traded it in the past and been successful with it. So I threw on a position. Natural gas has done well lately, so that's probably why they've kind of spiked. I think at some point natural gas might have some continuation to the upside. It might pull back here for a while. I might take some profits on Smart Sand soon. I'll probably think about it some more, but yeah, I might take some profit on that and then just let the rest run. I mentioned I picked up Intrepid as another potash stock. KWeb, that's just a China ETF. So again, the just holding something for the China bull market. So Brunswick Exploration, I mentioned this is also run by Robert Wares, who's also involved with those Cisco metals. I'm just willing to take the risk on this one. This is a lithium explorer. I don't know Robert Wares. I don't know much about him other than I see him accumulating both of these stocks. He's a longtime geologist. He's an older guy. I've seen some interviews with him. And it's just kind of one of those things where I see what he's doing and I'm kind of betting on his expertise. And I see other analyst commentary on specifically Brunswick Exploration. And I just think that it's a really interesting opportunity. The lithium market has been pretty depressed after its run up that it had. And this stock has really come down from the elevated levels it was at, but they keep advancing the project. You do see Robert Wares buying from time to time, and then there's also other insiders that are continuing to buy. So I like the risk. I think this could be something where it could just randomly explode out of the blue, and so I'm willing to park some cash in there and just see what happens. JD.com, that's another China bull market play. Vermilion Energy, another stock for the oil and gas industry. I picked that up to just kind of again keep adding some oil and gas exposure as those markets start to bottom and eventually move into a bull phase. Hercules Silver, this stock used to be a silver discovery and then it kind of turned into a copper discovery. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I might end up cutting it at some point because it hasn't really been performing and I don't follow it closely. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one yet, but I'm not really inclined to keep holding it if it doesn't start doing something at some point. Black Iron, I've traded this stock a lot in the past. It's one of those stocks that just has periods of outperformance where you can, take it for a quick trade and not a quick trade, but you can take a trade with it after it has a period of strength. It kind of, has that period of volatile swings up and down. So this company is actually in Ukraine. So I owned it back in 2022. And when the war started, the stock kind of remained, had lackluster performance and remained a bit depressed. But I figured if the war ever ended or if, good news came out and again, the whole larger commodity complex bull market and upswing from the cycle perspective and dollar devaluation, etc., I figured eventually this would have another pop, and it did. So I ended up selling in like somewhere around 15 cents when it swung back up. I think I made like 130%. And then I like it for another swing recently, so I bought it back at 11 and a half cents, and um, I'll just kind of see what happens with it. But this is definitely just a trade. Don't expect this company to be successful long term. I don't even follow it, honestly. I just I know about it and that it has these swings, and I'm willing to take a bet on it. Equity metals, that's a good quality explorer. Precious metals, platinum group metals. This stock's pretty risky, but I have a small position in it, and I'm willing to just kind of see what happens with it. Just another platinum group metal stock. Silver One Resources, a silver explorer. It hasn't performed super well, but it's forming a really nice base. So I'm willing to kind of just see what happens with it. Silver's performing really well. Maybe this will just have an explosive move. I'd probably honestly just sell the whole thing and forget about it if it got up to 70 to 75 cents. But for now, I'm willing to keep holding it with silver continuing to outperform. And then Outcrop Gold and Silver, just a small gold and silver producer or a gold and silver explorer that I think it's an explorer that I just have a small position in that I'll keep holding. So that's the long-term trading account. I'm not really looking at anything specific right now. I'm okay holding what I have. Eventually, if the market keeps going up, I'll trim more, but I don't have anything on my radar that I'm trying to add at the moment. But that could change at any minute. So be sure to follow me so you can get informed of any changes that I make. The crypto market, it's been pretty flat this year. I mentioned before, I kind of have what I have, and I'm not really looking to add more. If I see a unique opportunity, I will take a stab. And the latest there was Zcash. I saw it started getting some exposure. I saw Naval Ravikant post about it, and I saw an article that he linked. I read it. I thought it was interesting. This is one of those things where I liked what I read and the frame for it. And a big part of investing or having like massive successes is playing the very, very, very long term like Warren Buffett does. And I'm trying to do that with more of my portfolio and assets. That's why I have the Bitcoin and I want to just let it be for 30 years and see what happens. So from everything that I saw about Zcash, I liked the idea of just plugging some money into it and just leave it and see what happens. That being said, I did end up selling a lot of it because it went up it went up so much so quickly. So if I pull up the chart, I bought 3,000 worth at 130 after it had that pump in early October. And then I ended up selling some at like 250-ish, I think. And then and when I sold it at 250, I sold enough to recoup my. No, I don't think it was 250. I think I sold it at like 220. But anyway, I sold enough to recoup the principal that I had put in, the 3K that I had put in. But then I had this massive run up to 650 to 700. And so I sold some more at 650 because I, when you have a move like this, you got to be prudent and you got to take profit. Like it more than likely this isn't sustainable and it's going to come back down or at least have a big correction. And at the same time, you never know what's going to happen. You just never know. So I didn't want to sell everything in case it just kept going, right? Like, who would have thought that once it ran from 50 to 250, that it wasn't going to have a giant correction back to 50 from there? Like, maybe it was just going to pump up and then go back down. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So I wanted to be prudent. I wanted to have it be a gain. And at the same time, if it did just go, then I want to leave some exposure. I don't want to be. I want to have some exposure. I want to remain in the market, but I also wanted to be prudent and take some profit. So that's exactly what I did. So I've sold about 80% of it. This is the cash that I have is all the cash from the sales of the initial 3K I invested. That's what I did with Zcash, and I'm totally good just holding what I have now. I don't care what happens. If Zcash continues to move down, I'll probably pick up more. I don't know when I would, but I would definitely pick up more if it came down enough. Again, just for that long term bet. But I don't want to give like all my gains back, right? Like, so I probably wouldn't invest a lot. I'll just have to see when it comes. And then I have a position in Hedera Hashgraph. I've been holding that for quite a long time. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I'm willing to just hold a little bit and see what happens. It's a very interesting project. All right, and looking at the investing portfolio, this has also performed well this year percentage wise. I did have some precious metals exposure in here, but I already sold them, so they're not reflected here. And again, I didn't want to spend too much time doing a ton of backfill on data, so I don't have a lot of those things represented in the closed positions either. But that's why it's had some outperformance. And then obviously you can see like a lot of the open positions have done well too. So going through, I have a big position in Brazil. Really liked a lot of the research that Tavi Costa has put out around Brazil's economy and their stock valuations, and they're very much a commodity driven country. So I really liked the idea of having a big investment in there, and it also is very high yield. So if I look at that ETF, I started buying it in I think 2024. My rough cost basis is right here. It's like roughly 18. I ended up switching from EWZ to this ETF, so that's why I wanted to put my cost basis on here. But it's yielding 4.8% right now. So when the prices were a lot lower, it was yielding even more. So yeah, I really like holding that for a longer term investment. Chevron, again, I'm trying to position for the oil and gas run, but Chevron is also just a great stock. They're a dividend champion. They've been increasing their dividend for many years, decades. With the oil and gas bull market that I'm expecting at some point, and the dividend that they have, I like holding this for the long term. And I recently added some, and I'll probably continue to add if good opportunities present itself. Schwab, SCHD. So this is the main dividend equity ETF that I want to continue building exposure in. With this investing portfolio, I really like the idea of having a lot of dividend growth companies. I still want to have some tech companies and other companies where they have the opportunity to grow massively over the next 20, 30 years, but I do like the idea of having dividend growth companies as well. And I just want to give a shout out to Dividendology. I love the work that Eli does there, and that's definitely one of the people on my team that I use for information and to outsource investment ideas. So check out his channel. He gave me a lot of influence for me starting this channel because he shares his dividend portfolio transparently, and I really like that. I want to continue building a position in SCHD. That's definitely one of the long-term goals with this account. ASML, I picked that up pretty recently. That's a good tech company I want to keep holding long-term. VYMI, International High Yield Dividend ETF. I like holding that. Starbucks, I worked for this company for a bit, and that's why I have the stock. I should have sold when it had the run-up to like 115 or whatever it was, but I didn't. You know, we'll see what the new CEO can do and if he can turn it around. I'm okay just holding it, but if it kind of stagnates too long, I might get rid of it and put the money into something else. But for now, I'm willing to wait and see what happens because he did a really good job turning around Chipotle. This is a very different business, but I'm willing to wait and see what happens. Tesla, I wish I picked up more, but I kind of have what I have. I don't want to buy up here at these prices. We'll see what happens with it. Elon's continuing to expand the company into other applications besides cars. So I think it's interesting from just a innovation perspective. There's actually a few stocks in here that are kind of innovation plays where like the idea of plugging some money into them and seeing what happens with them. CRISPR Therapeutics was is a really interesting company with the gene therapy. I like the idea of holding that one, and I've seen some of the insiders do some big buying. Rio Tinto and BHP are high yield dividend mining companies. I liked holding them for the commodities bull market, but eventually I will sell these. But holding them for now. Tempest AI, similar to CRISPR Therapeutics, I just want to. I saw this company is a big holding in Kathy Wood's ETF. Same with CRISPR and a couple other ones I have in here. I like the idea of just seeing what happens with them. I don't know a ton about these companies, to be frankly honest. Yeah, I think a lot of companies where, especially AI like these or innovative technology companies, who knows who the winners are going to be. I'd rather just spread my bets evenly between them, and maybe one of them becomes a giant success. So I'm okay taking the bet on it. But yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen with those. Essential Utilities. I think this is a good utility company just as a somewhat of a portfolio hedge against market weakness or economy weakness. They're a water utility company. So I like having a little position in that, and if it had a lot of weakness, I'd be willing to add a lot more of it. Berkshire Hathaway, I picked this up as it started having corrections. This stock has consistently outperformed the market. I'm sure the people coming in will probably outperform too, and I'm willing to take a bet on that. So anytime Berkshire has a corrective period, I'm down to pick up some shares here and there, and then just hold it for the long term and see what happens. I can't stress enough that with a lot of the positions I'm choosing with this investment portfolio for the long term and the position sizing and things like that, I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen, right? Like think about if you invested in Amazon, way back when, especially after the crashes in 2002, 2001 to 2003, and then again in 2008. Imagine if you put $1,000 into Amazon then, but then you also put $1,000 into four other stocks that went to zero. Well, you probably wouldn't care about the other four stocks that went to zero because at least you picked up Amazon. And if we looked at just to do a thought experiment really quick, if we look at where Amazon was back then, so if you put $1,000 in back in 02 at $1, holy smokes, you'd be up 234 times your money. You would have that $1,000 would be $234,000. So do you really care that you put $1,000 into four other companies that went to zero? It's like, no, you don't know who the winners are going to be. You have to do your best to try and align to them over time and be cognizant as the market changes and information is new information comes out. It's just an iterative process to try and figure out those kinds of things. But yeah, who knows who the winners are going to be? So I like the idea of spreading my bets, trying to identify companies that have potential, and then just iterate on those over time. But just because a company has a lot of underperformance in a shorter time period, like over a 1, 2, 3 year period, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to sell out and put it into a winning company, because you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. And part of building wealth, and especially getting into something like an Amazon or an Apple or a Google or a Microsoft, you have to be willing to take risk and you have to be willing to wait. And so that's my focus for a lot of the investment portfolio. And that's why I have some of the companies I do. Archer, that's another kind of innovation company that I wanted to take a bet on. They're doing like eVTOL, where I think it's AI driven flying autonomous vehicles. So, I think eventually it could be like an Uber, like a flying Uber, is my understanding. I think other companies might be working on that technology too, but this one's publicly traded. Willing to throw some money at it and see what happens. You can see with a lot of those innovation stocks, I have smaller positions. They're not a huge part of my portfolio because who knows what's going to happen, but I do want some exposure. I'll also take a moment to just say I do use AI for a lot of my research too. I think AI is great to condense information that is out there on the internet from various analysts and providers. I have a smaller position in Archer compared to some of those other stocks like Tempest AI and CRISPR Therapeutics because from my research, there's more risk with Archer than some of those other stocks. United Healthcare, I couldn't help but pick some up when it had this giant correction. This company, it's a giant healthcare company. I don't really want to be in a healthcare company. I don't really care for it, but I couldn't ignore that it had this giant sell off, and I don't think it's warranted for it to be down here. So I couldn't help but pick some up. It's small, but I'm willing to keep holding it. Louis Vuitton, I ended up picking some up because it had the giant correction, and some of the insiders are just buying like crazy. So it's a small position, but I was willing to pick some up and have some exposure. American Waterworks, this is another utility stock that I like holding in tandem with Essential Utilities. It's a smaller position, but I'd be willing to add to it, same as Essential Utilities if it had a big correction. It's just a good stock for like something that'll hold its value, in my opinion. I picked up a little bit of Amazon recently, fairly recently. I wish I bought more, but that's okay. I think Amazon's a good company, and a lot of these giant tech companies, I do want to buy them and hold them for the long term. I don't want to buy now on a lot of them, but I have watch lists for companies that I would like to pick up, and I'll just have to see what happens over time, where the market is at, where cycles seem to be at, and just start accumulating as I can. So right now I have about 9K cash in this portfolio. Again, I'm trying to grow this account to more than 50% of my assets. So I'm totally okay pumping a bunch of my cash into here. I just haven't seen the opportunities yet to do that. So it's just going to take time for the market cycles to present themselves in a way where I want to dump a lot more cash into stocks. I also still have tons of the exposure to precious metals, so I want to give that space to continue to grow. But eventually I'll take profits on those and rotate them into these longer term investments where they can really compound over time, like we just saw with Amazon. Obviously, that Amazon example was from the bottom of the bear market, but and we're not at that point in the cycle today where markets are at all-time highs. But you never know what's going to happen with the markets, and so I don't want to bet that we're going to have a giant correction at some point. I just want to keep buying the dip, right? And I want to keep adding whenever there's market weakness. So I picked up some more stock when we had the downturn in April of this year. I just want to, whenever opportunities present themselves, just pick up more stock. And like I said, I have a watch list that I'm looking at for considering that. Jumia Technologies, this came across my radar. I read an article about it as the Amazon of Africa. Looked interesting. I just put a little bit of money into it just to get my feet wet. I don't really know a ton about it. I should probably do more research on it, to be honest. I had read that article, and it looked very interesting to throw a little bit of money at it. That's another cool thing about being diversified with your, if you have a 20, 30 year horizon and you don't know what's going to happen and who the winners are going to be, you don't really have to throw a lot of money at these stocks to potentially have something that's incredibly life-changing. We saw with Amazon over a 25-year period, it went up 234 times. I mean, if my $300 investment went up 234 times, I mean that $300 alone would turn into 70,000 in 25 years. And that's just that's $300. That's 300 divided by 525,000, 0.06% of my portfolio. That's not like that's an easy bet. Like I would love to hold Jumia Technologies in case it randomly becomes a huge success in Africa, goes up 234 times over the next 25 years. Who knows? But that's a pretty sweet risk reward for a very small investment. And again, that's how I like to think about this portfolio. Companies that I have more conviction in, that are more stable and have free, uh, free cash flow and financials that support its long-term profitability, and they have a competitive advantage. Yeah, I'm going to put more money into those and have a higher weighting in those, but you have to take risk to have outsized returns. You just have to. And that's how you would even outperform Warren over the long term. But, you know, it's obviously debatable to do something like Warren's strategy where you're doing more proven companies, or something like what I'm doing where I'm investing in those companies that are more stable, but I'm also willing to take risk on up and coming companies that could be potential winners in the very, very long term. Again, you just never know. The last two stocks are agriculture, like farmland. They're kind of real estate companies of sorts in the farmland industry. I had picked those up. They're very small positions. They're not doing well. They had a big run up in 2021, but they're just kind of stagnating now. I might cut them at some point, but they're such small positions. I'm just going to leave them for now and kind of see what happens. Yeah, that's the investing portfolio. All right, looking at the physical precious metals, I'm mostly silver with my physical metals, some gold and a little bit of platinum too. At some point, I'm probably gonna trim this. I don't know when. I feel like I'm comfortable holding silver into the at least the 70s or 80s, even if it takes another few years. So, and then gold. I don't know if I'll ever sell the gold, because I kind of like the idea of just holding onto something physical. Even for some of the silver too, just holding it onto it for my lifetime. So, but I probably will trim at some point, especially the silver. But yeah, probably not until like the 70s or 80s or higher on those. So nothing to really call out here. The emergency fund got about 15K cash in there now. I want to grow this to 36K and eventually 72K. So yeah, I'll continue working on growing that over time. No call outs on the assets and debts. I got my dirt bike. So for the retirement accounts, my main two holdings are CEF and OCMAX. CEF is a physical gold and silver trust. So it's basically like holding the physical metals. It's roughly 70% gold, 30% silver. I like holding that as basically just more physical PMs. It's just a little bit more easier to sell, right? Because it's a ETF instead of physical. I'll continue to trim that over time as the precious metals do well. OC Max is a gold stock fund, so it's very similar to like a GDX. And I like continuing to hold that with the precious metals bull market. So I've sold about a third of the gold stocks so far. So that's why I have the cash that I do, and I'll continue to sell those on strength, and just continue to trim. These accounts have performed very well this year because of the gold stocks. And before I owned CEF, I owned Wheaton Precious Metals, and that did really well too. And so that's why this account also grew so much this year. And this is my retirement account, so I do get a little bit of matching from my job. So cash does come in here, a little bit of cash every month, and that goes into this Fidelity Contra Fund. So this is basically just like an S&P 500, like a market index. So that's currently up 10%, doing okay. So again, no changes here, just some continuing to trim as the precious metals bull market continues. So that covers the portfolio. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or wanted me to cover something that I didn't, be sure to let me know in the comments below. I'll continue iterating this over time. I'll share every change that I make in real time on the YouTube channel and X. If it warrants a video, I'll post it on YouTube, but if it doesn't, I might just post it on X. So make sure you follow me on both. And be sure to check out my other content on finance, life philosophy, and other systems that help keep me grounded in my life as I navigate this portfolio growth journey. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next videos.